as the book of Exodus. So we put it down below the yellow books, here to the side, put it there to show us it doesn't move us anywhere historically or geographically. Then we have the book of Numbers, which picks up at the end of the book of Exodus. And the book of Numbers basically is the story of going from Mount Sinai to a very important decision place. Does anybody know what that important decision place was? Kadesh Barnea, said someone. And that's correct. Kadesh Barnea. At Kadesh Barnea, they sent 12 spies into the land, and they come back and they say what? Giants in the land. We look like grasshoppers. We can't do this. The people vote. They say no. And then God gives them all an F for the course of faith. They flunk the final exam, and from that point on, God will judge that nation. That particular generation will die in the wilderness. They're the ones that voted. They die. Now, about the end of the book of Numbers, and their 40 years of wandering in the wilderness, then as a judgment, we come to the end of that time, and they're camping in Moab. And as they're camping in Moab, Moses gives the law the second time. And as he gives the law the second time, it's recorded in the book of what? Deuteronomy. Deuteronomy. Now, Deuteronomy is down below, so put Deuteronomy in. And then Moses dies and is buried on Mount what? Nebo. And then his understudy, we should say, or military leader, takes over. His name is Joshua. And Joshua leads the people across the Jordan River, and then you have the book of Joshua that records the conquest of the land, of the promised land. What happens is, though it is an incomplete conquest and results in a national crisis, an incomplete conquest that resulted in a national crisis. A crisis that would last for 299 years. And that crisis is the book of Judges. All right. Book of Judges is sort of a dark ages time. During the book of Judges is a beautiful love story. It's a story of Ruth. Wonderful story that's there, but it happens during the time of the Judges. Doesn't move us geographically or historically. And then you have the books of 1st and 2nd Samuel. The book of 1st Samuel is about the reign of King Saul. It's also about, the book of 1 Samuel is about the reign of 1st Saul as the first king, but it is also about David's fleas. Because you find David running all the time. He's fleeing from Saul. So the book is just as much about David fleeing as it is about Saul ruling. All right? And so that's 1 Samuel. Then 2 Samuel is about the reign of King David. And 2 Samuel, the material of 2 Samuel is also recorded in the book of 1 Chronicles. And so we put 1 Chronicles to parallel 2 Samuel. So if you're going to read about King David, you'd read in 1 Chronicles or 2 Samuel. Then in 1 Kings is the next one, and King Solomon reigned. Now those are the 3 kings of the United Kingdom era. The 3 kings of the United Kingdom era, Saul, David, Solomon, they all reigned for how many years? 40, yes. And Solomon, so 1 Kings 1 through 11, the first 11 chapters is about the reign of Saul. Solomon died in what year? 931. I've got more and more people answering that question as we go along, and that's exciting. All right, Solomon died in what year?
931 BC.
Thank you for the BC. We appreciate that. All right. And so 931 BC. And when he dies, his son Rehoboam takes the throne, threatens to raise taxes, and the 10 northern tribes say, no way, and they secede from the Union. They retain the name of Israel. The south, where the capital is in Jerusalem, is in the territory of Judah, and so it has the name of Judah. All right, so 1 Kings, you see the split that's happening? Okay, so there's a little bit better view of the split. And they split. The north is called Israel. The south is called what? Judah. And this finishes up 1 Kings and also through 2 Kings. 2 Kings ultimately tells the story of the captivities of both the north and the south. So sometimes we'll refer to the north and the south, or sometimes we call it Israel and Judah. Okay. Now, let's move down just a little bit. And both in 2 Kings, what we have is Israel going into captivity to Assyria in what year? 722. Thank you. And we have the south going into captivity 586 to Babylon. They are in captivity in Babylon for 70 years. They return and rebuild the destroyed city of Jerusalem and rebuild the walls and reestablish worship in the temple, rebuild the temple and reestablish worship there, and that's the end of the Old Testament. How about that? That's the end of the Old Testament. Now, we're going to go back through because we have a few boxes that we didn't fill in, right? We've got the yellow boxes filled in, but now what happens after that? So, first of all, when you're filling this chart out, let's do the easy stuff first. What are the 3 last books of the Old Testament? Haggai, Zechariah, Malachi, right? Say it with me. Haggai, Zechariah, Malachi. Oh, you got to do it in rhythm. Haggai, Zechariah, Malachi. That's good. All right, let's put those over here. The 3 last boxes you can fill in are the 3 last books. They're gray on that side over there. Okay, that's good. All right. Now, we have 3 books that are written during the time of the 70-year exile. The way to remember that is you're either dead, or you're exiled, or you're left. That's D-E-L, right? And so D-E-L stands for Daniel, Ezekiel, and Lamentations. Lamentations actually happens at 586 at the destruction of the temple. So, in the 3 books we remember as the exile prophets, the books of the exile, we call them the exilic prophets, are Daniel and Ezekiel and Lamentations. The other 3 we didn't mention, but these 3, Haggai, Zechariah, Malachi, are called post-exilic prophets. That is, they're after the exile. So these 3, put on this line right here, post-exilic prophets. And this would be exilic prophets. E-X-I-L-I-C. Not everyone spells it that way, but you asked, how do I spell it? Right. All right, now that gives us E-X-I-L-I-C. Now, we're going to move to, let's see.
What did you say, 586?
586. 586 is the destruction of the temple and the leveling of the city, and actually at the point of 586, there are no more kings for Judah. That's why we terminate it and we say this is the end of the southern kingdom, 586, because there aren't any more kings of Judah after 586. There were 3 deportations, but we'll get into that in later lessons.
What did you say for Daniel, Ezekiel, Lamentations? Dead, exile?
Yeah, you're either dead or you're exiled or you're left. And that would be D-E-L. Some people remember the books easier than the help. So if you can remember Daniel, Ezekiel, Lamentations, the Lamentations is the lament, the cry, the sorrow, it is the time of just remorse and grief at the destruction of the temple and the destruction of the city of Jerusalem, written by Jeremiah. All right, now we're going to go to let's go to the big list of them. And these would be the pre-exilic prophets to Judah. The pre-exilic prophets to Judah. And the way to remember that is, oh, I am in hurts, JJ. Oh, I am in hurts, JJ. It could be Jerusalem and Judah saying it, because they are all in hurts. But what in hurts would be HZ. So this would be O, Obadiah, I, Isaiah, M, Micah, Nahum, Habakkuk, and then Hertz is the HZ, Habakkuk and Zephaniah, and then Joel and Jeremiah. All right. Everybody say that. O, I am in Hertz, JJ. Do it again. O, I am in Hertz, JJ. Okay. That ought to help you. All right, then we have some prophets to the north. I'm not sure if I have a zoomed-in copy of that, but that would be these three pre-exilic prophets to the north are Jonah, Amos, and Hosea, and I like to just think of Jonah Jaw. You know, when Jonah was thrown over the boat, he went, ah! So much for that. So, but that would be J for Jonah and A-H for the awe. Okay? And so it's J for Jonah, and then A is for Amos. And what's the H? Hosea. Hosea. All right. Hosea. Okay, now let's go back and look at these. We've got Job filled in, and I think we've got these Leviticus and Deuteronomy and Ruth, but we didn't do this one yet. And David wrote about half the Psalms, and so we point up to 1st and 2nd Samuel and 1st Chronicles for the Psalms. Solomon wrote 3 books. In the first 11 chapters, we would have his life. The first 11 chapters of 1 Kings. So this is pointing up to that time, and that would be Proverbs, Ecclesiastes, and Song of Solomon. Proverbs, Ecclesiastes, Song of Solomon. All right, you've got that? Good. Good. Now, I think we've got them all filled in, don't we? Okay, good. Good. We're moving on now. We're moving on to our today's lesson, and we probably won't finish everything of today's lesson, but I'm not worried because I've got a lighter load in some of the later lessons, and so if we get just a little bit behind, we're not going to worry about that. I want you to pull out map 1B. 1B. We're going to kind of get, tonight, we're going to kind of get the lay of the land geographically. We want to see how the land is laid out geographically. We've seen it, we've seen the sweep of the books. Now we want to see a sweep geographically of the books. And we put this all together, it'll really start making sense. This is map 1B. It looks, Teresa, hold that up again, would you? Yes, 1B. 1B is down at the corner. It's all filled out. Uh-oh. We've lost it up here.